All right, so we are diving into community gardens today.
Okay.
And specifically, we're going to be looking at Growing Together, a handbook for building and sustaining community gardens.
Sounds good.
And I think it'll be really interesting to kind of look at some of these case studies
Yeah.
of, community gardens that have been successful
Yeah, for sure.
and see if we can pull out some common threads.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what we find.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I was looking through the book earlier,
Okay.
and it's just amazing to see the sheer variety of approaches and how they're all tailored to their environments and communities.
Yeah, like each one is its own little ecosystem.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's like a fingerprint,
Yeah.
totally unique.
I love that. Okay, so one that really caught my eye was the Brooklyn Grange in New York City.
Oh, yeah, the rooftop farm.
Yeah, a rooftop farm. I mean, how cool is that?
It's incredible what they've been able to do with limited space.
Right, like turning a rooftop into a productive farm in the middle of New York City, that's just mind-blowing.
It really challenges our preconceived notions of where food can be grown, doesn't it?
Absolutely. But I'm curious, how do they make it financially viable in such an expensive city?
Well, they've got a really smart business model.
Okay.
They sell their produce to local restaurants and farmers markets.
So they're tapping into that local sustainable food movement.
Exactly. And there's a huge demand for that, especially in a place like New York.
That makes sense. Okay, so another one that totally blew my mind was Incredible Edible in Todmorden, UK. Have you heard of this one?
Oh, yeah. Incredible Edible is fantastic.
So they're planting herbs and vegetables in roundabouts and public spaces for anyone to pick.
I know, it's brilliant, isn't it?
It's like a free food revolution.
It really is. And it's not just about the food. It's about transforming the community's relationship with food in public space.
Right, like fostering a sense of shared responsibility.
Exactly. Everyone is welcome to harvest, but they also encourage everyone to participate in planting and caring for the gardens.
I love that. But I can't help but wonder, doesn't that lead to problems? Like people taking more than their fair share or even vandalism?
That's a valid concern and something they definitely had to address.
Okay.
But they found that by actively involving the community, it actually reduced those issues.
Really?
Yeah, people are more likely to respect and care for something they've had a hand in creating.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like building a sense of ownership.
Exactly. It's a really inspiring example of how a community-led initiative can create positive social change.
Totally. And speaking of tackling challenges, there's the Growing Power Urban Farm in Milwaukee. They turned a site with contaminated soil and limited resources into a thriving example of urban agriculture.
Growing Power is incredible. They're real pioneers in the field.
I was reading about their aquaponics system. Can you explain how that works in a community garden setting?
Sure. So aquaponics is a system where you raise fish and plants together in a symbiotic relationship.
Okay.
The fish waste provides nutrients for the plants, and the plants filter the water for the fish.
So it's like a closed-loop ecosystem.
Exactly. And it's incredibly efficient, especially in an urban environment where space and resources are limited.
That's amazing. And they're not just growing food, they're also teaching people how to do it themselves, right?
Yeah, they have a big focus on education and community outreach.
That's so important, especially in areas where access to fresh food is limited.
Absolutely. They're really empowering people to take control of their own food production and build a more just and sustainable food system.
Now, I also wanted to touch on the Edible Schoolyard project in Berkeley. I think this is a brilliant concept.
The Edible Schoolyard is a fantastic example of how gardening can be integrated into education.
So they have an actual garden and kitchen classroom
Yeah.
right on the school grounds.
Yep. And it's not just an extracurricular activity, it's woven into the curriculum.
Wow, so kids are learning about food, nutrition, and where their food comes from by actually getting their hands dirty.
Exactly. And they're learning valuable life skills like teamwork, problem solving, and even a bit of entrepreneurship if they sell their produce at a farmer's market.
It's such a hands-on, experiential way to learn.
Yeah.
But I imagine it wasn't easy to get this off the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, integrating a garden into a traditional school system must have been a challenge.
You're right. It took a lot of dedication and collaboration.
What were some of the key factors that led to their success?
I think building strong partnerships was crucial. They worked closely with teachers, parents, administrators, and the wider community to create a shared vision.
So it wasn't just about the garden itself, it was about building a community around it.
Exactly. And they were able to demonstrate the tangible benefits of the program, not just in terms of education, but also for the kids' health and well-being.
That's fantastic. And it
Yeah.
highlights a key point that keeps coming up, the importance of community engagement for any successful community garden.
Absolutely. And these are just a few of the inspiring stories we've found. There are examples from all over the world: St. Vincent, Jordan, Cuba, Sweden. It's amazing to see how this movement is taking root in such diverse environments.
It's truly a global phenomenon.
Mm.
But I'm curious, what about the challenges? I mean, it can't always be easy to get these projects off the ground and keep them running.
You're absolutely right. The book doesn't shy away from the real-world obstacles that community gardens often face. In fact, it dedicates a whole section to exploring those challenges and the solutions that others have found.
Okay, that's what I want to hear about. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. What are some of the biggest hurdles these gardens have to overcome?
Well, funding is always a major issue, especially for urban gardens where land is scarce and expensive. And then there's the challenge of securing suitable land in the first place, navigating zoning laws, and dealing with land ownership issues.
It sounds like a logistical nightmare sometimes.
It can be. And then there's the ongoing challenge of maintaining community engagement. It takes consistent effort to keep people involved and invested in the garden over time.
Right, it's not a one-time thing. It's about cultivating a community as much as cultivating plants.
Exactly. And the book dives into some really creative and innovative solutions that successful gardens have developed to address these challenges.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's hear about those solutions. What are some of the strategies they've used to overcome these obstacles?
One of the most effective strategies is building strong partnerships. Many gardens have teamed up with local businesses, schools, or government agencies to pool resources and expertise.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about leveraging each other's strengths to create a win-win situation.
Exactly. For example, some gardens partner with restaurants to supply them with fresh produce, creating a reliable revenue stream for the garden and a source of local, sustainable ingredients for the restaurant.
So it's about thinking outside the box and finding creative ways to integrate the garden into the fabric of the community.
Precisely. And then there's creative land use, which is especially crucial in urban areas. We've already talked about rooftop farms, but there are so many other innovative approaches.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, some gardens are transforming vacant lots into vibrant green spaces, revitalizing neglected areas, and addressing food deserts in the process. Others are utilizing vertical space with wall-mounted gardens or tiered planters, maximizing yield in a small footprint.
I love those vertical gardens. They're like living walls.
They are, and they can actually help improve air quality and reduce urban heat island effects, so they have environmental benefits as well.
It's incredible how these gardens are addressing so many different issues at once.
Yeah.
Food security, community building, environmental sustainability.
It's true. And the book goes on to explore even more cutting-edge approaches and future trends in community gardening, which we can dive into later.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. I can't wait to hear more about those trends.
We'll save that for part 2 of this deep dive. But for now, I think we've laid a good foundation with these inspiring examples of community gardens that are thriving despite the challenges.
Absolutely. And it's clear that these gardens are about so much more than just growing food. They're about cultivating connections, fostering resilience, and building a more sustainable and just future for everyone.
Couldn't agree more. It's amazing how these gardens can be so adaptable, isn't it?
It is. You know, I keep thinking about Incredible Edible.
Oh, yeah.
Like the idea of transforming an entire town into an edible landscape is just so radical.
It's pretty amazing what they've done in Todmorden.
Yeah, and I was thinking about, they have this open access policy.
Right.
Anyone can just come and pick whatever they need.
Yeah.
But I wonder, how do they ensure, like, fair distribution? Do they have any guidelines, or is it just a free-for-all?
That's a good question. I think it's more about fostering a sense of community and trust.
Okay.
They don't have strict rules, but they really emphasize shared responsibility and taking only what you need.
So it's like a community honor system.
Kind of. And it seems to be working for them. They haven't reported any major issues with people taking advantage or hoarding.
Wow, that's really impressive. It speaks to the power of community, I guess.
Definitely. And it's not just about the food either.
Okay.
They've seen a decrease in vandalism and antisocial behavior since they started the project.
Really?
Yeah, it seems like having these beautiful edible spaces has fostered a greater sense of pride and ownership in the community.
That's amazing. So it's like a win-win-win. Fresh food, stronger community, and even less crime.
Exactly. It shows how community gardens can be a catalyst for positive change on so many levels.
Totally. Now, okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about the Brooklyn Grange.
The rooftop farm.
Yes. I'm still fascinated by the idea of growing food on a rooftop in the middle of a city.
It's pretty remarkable what they've accomplished.
Yeah, and I'm still a little baffled by the logistics. Like, how do they even create soil on a rooftop?
Well, it's not your typical garden soil.
Okay.
They use a lightweight soil mix that's specially formulated for rooftop environments.
Mention it.
It's a blend of things like compost, coconut fiber, and other materials that provide good drainage and aeration.
That makes sense. You wouldn't want heavy, compacted soil on a rooftop.
Exactly. It could put too much stress on the structure.
Okay, so they've got the soil figured out, but what about the financial side of things? Rooftop real estate in New York must be astronomical.
It is, but they've found ways to make it work.
Wow.
They've got a pretty diverse business model. They sell to high-end restaurants, run farmers markets, have CSA programs, and even donate a portion of their harvest to food banks.
Wow, so they're balancing a for-profit model with a strong social mission.
Exactly. They're proving that you can do good and do well at the same time.
I love that. Okay, so another example that really impressed me was the Growing Power Urban Farm in Milwaukee.
Oh, yeah. Growing Power is doing some amazing work.
Yeah, they took a former industrial site with contaminated soil
Right.
and turned it into this incredible hub for urban agriculture.
It's really a testament to the power of community and perseverance.
And they're using aquaponics there as well, right?
Yes. They have a large-scale aquaponics system where they raise fish and use the nutrient-rich water to fertilize their crops.
I'm still a little fuzzy on how that actually works. Could you walk me through it again?
Sure. So they have these big tanks where they raise fish,
Okay.
and the water from those tanks gets pumped into a separate system where they're growing plants.
Okay.
And the plants naturally filter the water, removing the fish waste and absorbing the nutrients. And then that cleaned water gets recirculated back to the fish tanks. It's a brilliant system that mimics natural ecosystems.
That's so cool. It's like they've created a little self-contained ecosystem right there in the middle of the city.
They have, and they've also become leaders in educating others about sustainable food practices.
Through workshops and things like that.
Yeah, they offer workshops, training programs, even youth internships.
That's fantastic. So they're not just growing food, they're growing a movement.
Exactly. They're empowering people to take control of their food and build a more resilient local food system.
Okay, so we've talked about some incredible examples of community gardens from around the world. But I'm really curious about the future of this movement.
Oh, me too.
What trends are shaping the next generation of community gardens?
Well, one thing that's really exciting is the increasing integration of technology into community gardens.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, and it's really starting to take off.
So what kind of technology are we talking about?
Well, for example, imagine sensors embedded in the soil that constantly monitor moisture levels and nutrient content.
Okay.
And that data is used to automatically adjust irrigation systems, ensuring that plants are getting exactly what they need.
Wow, so it's like having a high-tech gardening assistant.
Exactly, and it's not just about efficiency.
Okay.
This data-driven approach can also help gardeners make more informed decisions about crop selection and planting strategies.
So they can optimize their yields and grow healthier plants.
Precisely. It's really taking community gardening to the next level.
That's awesome. What else?
Another exciting development is the use of drones in community gardens.
Drones.
Yeah, drones equipped with high-resolution cameras can capture aerial imagery of the garden.
Okay.
And that imagery can be analyzed to detect early signs of plant stress, disease, or pest infestations.
So it's like having a bird's eye view of the garden's health.
Exactly. And this early detection allows gardeners to address potential problems before they become widespread.
That's a game changer.
Right.
It means they can minimize crop loss and reduce their reliance on pesticides and herbicides.
Precisely. It's about working with nature, not against it.
I like that.
Eh.
What other technological advancements are they using?
Well, another interesting area is robotics.
Robots in the garden?
Yep. Robotic systems can assist with tasks like planting, weeding, and even harvesting.
Wow. So it's like having a little robot farmhand.
Kind of. And this technology can make gardening more accessible to people with disabilities or those with limited mobility.
Oh, that's a great point. It opens up the world of gardening to so many more people.
It does, and it's not just about technology either.
Okay.
Community gardens are evolving in terms of their role within society as well.
I'm curious to hear more about that. How are their roles changing?
Well, traditionally, they've been primarily focused on food production.
Right.
But now they're expanding their scope to address a wider range of community needs.
Like what?
We're seeing them transform into vibrant community hubs. They're hosting educational workshops on things like sustainable living, permaculture, nutrition.
It sounds like they're becoming like outdoor classrooms, promoting environmental awareness and sustainable practices.
Yeah, exactly. And some gardens are even partnering with schools to create hands-on learning experiences for students.
I love that idea. It's a much more engaging way to learn about science, nutrition, and even math than sitting in a traditional classroom.
It is. And it's not just about education.
Okay.
Community gardens are also being used to promote health and well-being.
How so?
We're seeing more gardens being incorporated into healthcare settings, things like horticultural therapy programs.
I was reading about those. That's fascinating.
Yeah, people are engaging in gardening activities as a form of therapeutic intervention.
I can see how being in nature and nurturing plants could have a really positive impact on mental and emotional well-being.
It does. There's a growing body of research that shows gardening can reduce stress,
Right.
improve mood, and even enhance cognitive function.
It's amazing how something as simple as gardening can have such profound effects.
It is, and there's even a growing movement to integrate community gardens into urban planning initiatives.
Oh, really?
Yeah, city planners are recognizing the value of green spaces within urban environments.
Okay.
And they're starting to incorporate community gardens into urban renewal projects.
So it's not just about creating green spaces, it's about weaving them into the fabric of the city.
Exactly. It's about creating more livable, sustainable, and resilient urban environments.
It sounds like community gardens are evolving from just being places to grow food to becoming these vital centers for community building, education, health, and even urban revitalization.
You've hit the nail on the head. They're really becoming multifaceted hubs that address so many different needs within a community.
It's incredibly inspiring to see how these seemingly simple green spaces are having such a profound impact. It gives me so much hope for the future.
Me too. And the best part is that this movement is driven by passionate individuals and communities who are committed to making a difference. It's a grassroots movement with a global reach.
It's amazing how much ground we've covered, right?
I know, right? Community gardens are such a rich topic.
They really are. And one of the things that struck me as we've been talking is how much more these gardens are than just about, well, gardening.
Yeah, it's not just about growing food, it's about growing communities.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things that makes this movement so powerful, is addressing so many different needs at once.
Absolutely. And the book really emphasizes that, you know? It highlights how these gardens are becoming these vital resources for communities.
Yeah, we've touched on examples like Growing Power and the Edible Schoolyard, but there are so many other inspiring stories of gardens that are really making a difference.
Right, like those gardens that partner with healthcare providers to offer therapeutic gardening programs.
Yeah, the horticultural therapy stuff, I'm so intrigued by that. What are some of the benefits they're seeing in those programs?
Well, they're seeing a lot of benefits for people with mental health challenges, disabilities, even people recovering from injuries.
Okay, like what specifically?
They're seeing reductions in stress and anxiety, improvements in mood, even boosts in self-esteem.
Wow, that's amazing. And I can see how being in nature, nurturing plants, could have those kinds of effects.
Yeah, and for people recovering from illness or injury, it can give them a sense of purpose, help them regain motor skills, even improve cognitive function.
It's incredible how something as simple as gardening can have such a profound impact.
It is. And then, you know, we've talked about food insecurity, and community gardens are playing a big role there, too.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to circle back to. How are these gardens helping to address food insecurity, especially in underserved communities?
Well, on a basic level, they're providing access to fresh, healthy food for people who might not be able to afford it otherwise.
Right, but it's more than just giving away food, isn't it?
Exactly. It's about empowering people to take control of their own food production.
So teaching them how to grow their own food.
Exactly. A lot of these gardens offer workshops, training programs, things like that.
It's like they're creating a more just and equitable food system from the ground up.
They are, and they're doing it in a way that's sustainable and environmentally responsible.
Yeah, we talked about some of the climate-resilient gardening practices they're using. Can you give me some more examples of what that looks like on the ground?
Sure. They're using things like water-wise irrigation, planting drought-tolerant varieties, building healthy soil to conserve water.
So really being mindful of the environment.
Exactly. And they're getting creative with things like microclimates and other innovative designs to adapt to changing weather patterns.
It's like they're little laboratories for sustainable living, showing us how to work with nature, not against it.
That's a great way to put it. And at the heart of all of this is this incredible passion for community, sustainability, and just the simple joy of growing things.
This deep dive has been such a great reminder of that. Community gardens are so much more than just plots of land. They're these vibrant ecosystems of growth, connection, and positive change.
I couldn't agree more. And what's so exciting is that this is a movement that anyone can be a part of.
Right. You don't need a huge backyard or years of experience to get involved. So for our listeners who are feeling inspired, what's a good first step?
Well, start by looking around your community. See if there are any existing gardens you can volunteer at. Maybe you can donate tools or supplies, or even just share your knowledge with others.
Those are great ideas. Even small actions can make a difference.
They can.
Mhm.
And remember, community gardens are about so much more than just growing food. It's about cultivating connections, building community, and taking care of our planet.
Absolutely. And on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the inspiring stories of community gardens around the world, dug into the challenges they face and the innovative solutions they've come up with, and even glimpsed into the future of this incredible movement. I don't know about you, but I'm walking away from this deep dive feeling energized and hopeful.
Me too. I think we've planted some seeds of inspiration today, and now it's up to all of us to nurture them and watch them grow.